want to say thank you guys for taking the time to meet with me virtually. As was just stated, I'm not there. Unfortunately, my one of my fur kids hurt himself yesterday, so we were at the emergency room at 6 a.m. bright and early, trying to figure out what happened. So he is here beside me as I present to you. So I'm grateful for everyone's attention today. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the presentation. I can't see anyone, so I'm going to assume it is up and you guys are seeing the first slide that shows voices that matter. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Greatly appreciate it. So I'm going to get into kind of how we use voice of the customer and insights to transform our contact center. So first, a little bit of background, if my presentation will work. All right. So a little bit about me. So I started in my contact center journey in 1999 at Fleet Bank, and I probably just aged myself saying that, but I was a support agent and I took phone calls from customers that had questions on account balances, ordering checks, and anything to the stretch of imagination of even overdraft fees and things of that nature. And I remember some of those calls that kind of tugged at my heartstrings. And it was at that point I really realized that contact center was the place I wanted to be. When customers would call with those overdraft questions and they didn't have money to pay for it, I couldn't fix it as a human, but I could recognize the other human on the other side and the pain that they were going through and the frustrations and concern. So that's what tied me to contact center and to continue my journey forward. In 2004, I worked at a company called TomTom, and it's still around today. At that time, it was a little in-car GPS navigation device. It was portable, you carry it around with you, and I was the sixth person within the organization in the US. This company is a Netherlands company out of Amsterdam. And at the time, I had started as an agent. I was first person picking up phone calls at the company, and I saw an opportunity in front of me to build a support team. And I did just that over the 7 years that I was there. So we had a tier two support team that really focused on customer escalation, quality assurance, training, AQs, etc. And throughout my journey, we also extended our support team into BPO partners. And that was my first introduction into the BPO world. Now, in 2011, the US was in a recession. And unfortunately, the GPS kind of segment was a novelty and not a necessity. So, in order for the organization to save money, they decided to lay off full departments in the US division and move that over to the European. So, from the time I moved over to AT&T, at that point, I tried something new. I was a product marketing manager for a VoIP product, which was backed by Cisco. And I was responsible for the end-to-end journey. So when sales identified a potential customer, what happened from that introduction to the discovery, design, provisioning, implementation, and handing over to support. So I built that end-to-end process. Now, where my role stopped is at the point of handing over to the support team. And I thought at that point in my journey, that's what I wanted. But as I saw friction happening within the contact center with our engineers, whether it was communication, process, etc., I wasn't allowed to do anything in that world. And I realized pretty quickly that it's actually where I wanted to be. So I left AT&T and went back into the contact center world and started working for Converse sneakers. I loved Converse. It was an amazing company. It's more than a brand, it's more than a sneaker. Converse is a lifestyle, and that's what not many people realize. Now, Converse used 3PLs that were a warehouse that had a contact center. So at my time of Converse, I spent training the contact center about KPIs and quality assurance and training. And it was all essentially, again, building a support team, which was actually really amazing. I wanted more out of my role. Now, I'm not saying somebody calling in and buying shoes isn't important because sometimes that pair of sneakers are the Converse sneakers are the only thing that that person could afford. So that was really important to understand. But I really wanted more out of my role and to grow. So I stumbled upon a senior manager for product support at Insulet in 2018. And I started my journey there 7.5 years ago. Now, within Insulet, I started in product support. I then moved into quality and customer experience, where I built a global VOC program, as well as a global quality program, but it was specific to customer care and product support. Earlier this year, about 5 months ago, actually, almost to the day, I was asked to move into our digital and customer experience team and then start to look at a true global VOC program that looks at the digital customer experience where customers engage with us through different points of their journey. Now, there's one thing that I take away from this journey that I've had through the different contact centers is every company has provided insights into the lives of humans and how they want to be treated and how they perceive the companies that they work with. So, Insulet Corporation, some of you may know the product. Omnipod 5 is our flagship product. Sorry, I'm getting a little background noise. Omnipod 5 is our flagship product. Some of you may know someone that is on product. You may be on product. You may have seen a commercial or social media post, but that is who Insulet Corporation is. But we're more than just a product. So Insulet was founded in 2000 by John L. Brooks and John Garbato. Now, Brooks's son had type 1 diabetes, and whether it's you or someone you know, if you have a child that has diabetes or you have diabetes, the toll that it takes on you managing glucose levels, making sure you eat the right things, monitoring your day-to-day activities and adjusting your insulin based on the needs of how your levels are. And John really wanted to make it easier for everyone, including his son, to manage their diabetes on a day-to-day basis. And that's how Omnipod came about. Our mission statement as a company is we improve the lives of people with diabetes and enable our customers to enjoy simplicity, freedom, and healthier lives through innovative technologies. Now, our mission statement talks a lot about the company and the product, but the way that I look at voice of the customer, it's broader than that. And it is inclusive of the agent and what we can do for them to make sure that they feel successful in the world that they are in today. So earlier in the presentation, when I talked about my career journey, I talked about a human connection and making sure that I understood what that was. And I want to talk about the human experience cycle that Bruce Temkin released in 2019. So on LinkedIn, Bruce had an amazing article that talked really about the human experience cycle, where the experiences as humans, it shapes our expectations we form about how we'll interact with people and how we respond to the world around us. And the interesting thing is, an experience that we had 10 years ago is going to be vastly different to what we see today because of the different facets that we've encountered and the growth we are or the growth we go through as humans. Now, in that article, it talked highly about the attitudes or how someone feels about that person or organization creates the expectations or what a person might anticipate before an experience or interaction occurs. Additionally, behaviors or the result of how someone chooses to interact with a person drives the experience or what happens during the interaction. And I'll give you an example. I won't name the name of the service provider, but some of you may pick up the hints along the way. So I was working with the service provider for many years, and unfortunately, the cost of the service provider was pretty high. We all got sent to work from home in 2000, and at the time, my internet service was working perfectly fine. 2 years later, it started not working correctly. And during meetings with executives, my internet would drop and I would lose the presentation. And as you can imagine, that was really, it created a nervous feeling. So every time I talked to this service provider, the situation, a conversation wasn't great. I built this attitude towards them that they weren't willing to help me, and all they cared about was the money that I was paying them on a monthly basis. Right. So now every time I called them, I was in a defensive nature. My behavior was defensive because I was actually expecting them to continue telling me that I was going to need to upgrade my service in order to get internet, which was not the right approach. So my experience with them wasn't great. I actually decided to leave them and I haven't been happier. So while Bruce Temkin talked about expectations and experiences, Where I want to focus our time is in the perception. How someone views the experience influences their expectations. And that is really important. And not many companies today focus on the perception of the customer view. And when you look at the perception, there's three things that the customer looks for. Did I achieve my goal? How difficult was it to achieve my goal? And how did it make me feel? And those three things, when I took a look at my experience with this company, those three things told me I needed to change. And I did just that. And as with a VOC Insights program that we have at Insulet, those are the things that I have ingrained in the teams and to really help drive the customer experience overall. So, why is it important? Why is the customer voice important? Well, if we take a look at the different facets of what the customer voice can do for an organization, it can drive operational excellence, right? The customer tells us where we need to do better. It creates a customer centric culture. So it creates a culture where people come together and the strategic decisions made are around the customer's perception of the organization and the product. Customers are a real time pulse. In 2025, social media is a huge avenue to gather a ton of feedback. And if companies aren't using this or leveraging customer insights in totality, they're going to lose customers. Customers are a growth engine. If we don't have customers, the company doesn't bring in revenue. Customers' voice or insights really helps us reduce churn and increases our loyalty. And most importantly, the feedback from our customers helps us empower our frontline teams. It gives us visibility into, did we do enough for our agents? Do we train them enough? Do they have the documentation and processes they need to make the right decision, etc. Now, as we talk a lot about the powers of customer voice on this slide, I will break down some of the areas where we used customer voice insights to change some of the methods or processes that we have today. So, feedback to foresight. At the bottom of this slide is where I'd like to focus our time. A lot of customers or organizations focus their time on NPS. NPS, NPS, let's drive NPS. And that's great. And I say that hesitantly. But when you're looking at a promoter or detractor, it doesn't necessarily tell you what the problem is unless they're very explicit in their feedback. And we all know that some customers just don't give us that solid, clear feedback. So over this past several years, I've been driving customer effort. How difficult was it for the customer to do what they wanted to do? Again, tying back to that perception element in the human experience cycle. Now, being able to do this successfully, we had to implement two platforms, Maestro QA Conversational Analytics, and then Qualtrics XM Management Platform. And we actually use those two platforms collectively to either understand customer sentiment and or validate the sentiment that we're getting back through VOC surveys. So how did we use this information to kind of drive our strategy and customer insights? Well, we were reactive listening, and with these platforms, we started to leverage customer insights to address current needs, anticipate future expectations, really help us shape our strategic decisions and design better experiences for that customer when they call into us. So I'll start with the three different areas that have made the most impact in our customer journey. Well, first is the overall customer journey. So instead of really honing in on NPS, we analyzed our support tickets, and we revealed that a high number of customers were getting stuck on the same step within our onboarding experience. This feedback enabled us to change the flow of our onboarding experience, which has actually improved our completion rate of onboarding. With the completion rate of onboarding, this allowed us to notify our field training team that the customer was ready for training. Through VOC Insights, we actually were able to improve our communication with our customer to let them know, hey, this is what happens after complete onboarding. Now, if some of you are Omnipod 5 products, we know that there's some adjustments that can still be made. So, and we're working through that as days go on. And then also through this feedback, we really improved our training. We noticed through VOC feedback that our customers still had questions after training about some of the most common themes or ways that the product works. And through that feedback and customer effort notification, we were able to enhance our training to include those alerts, alarms, and notifications, so the customer felt a little more prepared. Now, on the last slide, I did talk about customer loyalty and retention, and that is a big focus for us. So, with mitigating churn, instead of reacting to low satisfaction scores, we focused on customer sentiment. Some of the sentiment that we looked at was, why is a customer taking a break from using our product? Or even multiple calls into our support centers, what's driving those behaviors? And with that feedback, we're able to implement a few things. One is empathetic support. So we have a retention team where if a customer has taken a pause of using our product, which happens, um, we have that retention team reach out to understand, is it the cost of the product? Did their healthcare coverage change? Is there better training that we can offer, right? We have a clinical support team that gives the customer a more higher view into how to use the product a better way if they're struggling with day-to-day glucose management. What this also has provided us is the ability to engage with our customers at certain moments within their journey by sharing emails. Hey, we noticed you've been on product for X amount of time. Here's a great podcast that our customers find value in. And additionally, through our conversations and podcasts, it's really our goal is to reinforce the product benefits. And one of the biggest product benefits is to make sure that the customer stays within time and range in their glucose values. Now, the last area that we focused in on is improving product services and integrations. And this one is really important because it's not just about product. So in this particular area, and I have channel of choice highlighted here, it's 2025. Through our sentiment feedback, we realized that customers didn't want to just call us. They wanted different mechanisms to engage with us. So a few years ago, we launched Agent Chat, which this year we expanded upon Agent Chat. So now it's available through all of our website, different pages of our website. We also introduced a replacement portal. At 2 a.m., customers don't want to call us. Or if, let's say, you're a busy business person that travels a lot and you don't have time to call, you can log into our customer portal, which is Potter Central, and request a replacement through that portal. By doing that, we actually reduced our contacts into the center. That helped our customers, and the feedback we gathered from it was very high. They absolutely love being given a choice to choose how to interact with us. Conversational analytics helped us improve our agent enhanced experience. So as we were looking through our VOC insights, we identified that there were certain questions that the agents asked on the phone call every single time. And that actually was causing a lot of friction with our customers for some of our easier calls. So we identified that we could reduce our handle time by 60 to 90 seconds by providing that information to the agent through our cloud connected product and not needing to ask the customer for that information. So that is something that has really helped our agents to improve their experience. And that is coming. We haven't implemented that yet, but that is coming. And then workflow integrations is our closed loop product or closed loop mechanism. Through feedback of VOC, we create tickets and route it to the appropriate teams in the organization to bring awareness to what happens or what was happening at that moment in time in the customer journey. And I'll talk a little bit about closing the loop on the next slide, but wanted to call that out from a integration services perspective that has helped the organization and bring awareness to VOC insights across cross-functional teams. And then naturally with VOC Insights, it really has helped us prioritize our features. The features are not just product features, but also agent system enhancements. And I think that's an important thing for an organization to always take into consideration is what can we do for the agent? So a moment ago, we just talked about inner loop or closed loop. So all of the insights that I've talked about, we really used a closed loop process to drive those insights throughout the organization. And closing the loop in a very high level view essentially means you're listening, understanding, and following up with the customer after feedback has been provided. But there's actually a lot more that's involved in that. And it took some time to get the company on board to following a closing the loop function. In closed loop, there are two facets of it. There's an inner loop and an outer loop. The inner loop is a process that enables an organization to really answer customer feedback and respond in a timely manner, resolve customer problems. But for us, inner loop is much more. So we don't just look at customer survey feedback for inner loop. We also use conversational analytics to try to understand, did we in fact train our agents enough to be able to support the customer the way they want to be supported? And this is where we really look at customer perception. If a new process has come out, if a new FAQ or product, we build an LLM category within Maestro that helps us listen to all of the calls and capture where we may need to take a step back and either provide coaching or improve our training material so the next round of agents that go through the training are that much better. Now, with outer loop, you cannot have an outer loop without inner loop feedback, right? Outer loop really is the teams that do impact the customer, but they don't necessarily talk to the customer directly. So some of those teams are your product franchise teams, your product marketing teams, digital marketing experience, etc. So outer loop is used to identify more broader issues within an organization. They can help lead to strategic improvements, it product improvements. It involves analyzing feedback trends and implementing changes that benefit the customer and the agent. An example of outer loop is customers had been calling in and they kept asking the same question over and over. Now, with our agents, we asked them what would be more beneficial to help that customer. And they had great feedback. They asked for an FAQ on our website that they could email customers. And we did just that. So we posted an FAQ on our website regarding the top problem that customers were calling in about. And our FAQ hits have increased significantly for that to help our customers with self-service. So now our marketing team, they didn't talk to the customer. They just released an FAQ, which is considered the outer loop functionality. All right. With outer loop in the comes the empowering agents with insights. So I have talked a lot about agents throughout my presentation and how we really pull them into the organization. Now, when I started with BPO companies back in the late 90s and even went through my journey with some of the other companies, the contact centers or BPO teams were kind of left in the dark, right? They weren't really pulled in and considered as part of the ecosystem. And I know this day and age, we're shifting that mentality and we're involving our agents in more that we do. For Insulet, these are the things that we have done that has been successful with empowering our agents. One, customer history. We all know that the customer history and understanding what the customers have called about is important, right? But it's more than that. If we have the ability to provide a 360 view of who our customer is when they call in, it'll help our agents be that much more empowered to make the right decision. What email campaigns have they been part of? What text message campaigns have they been part of? What products have they activated? All of these things are extremely important to help empowering our agents to know how to handle and support the customer. The next thing is what's happening in the organization. I remember when I worked at prior companies and I would go to the BPO, a lot of the companies were like, oh, don't talk to me. It's the client. We don't want to talk to them. And that is not the approach that Insulet likes to take. So what we do is we host a monthly town hall with all of our support teams, and we talk about what's happening in the organization, what's happening with our products, what's happening with the customer satisfaction, what KPI metrics there are, and how are the agents influencing positive experiences with our customers. We talk about high fives and agents who get the top score on our customer satisfaction surveys. And most importantly, we bring in customer feedback. So we really make sure that we broaden our reach across the organization with our agents so they feel empowered. AI has been the talk of the town for many years in the contact center world. So guidance tools are equally important. In-house, we have a homegrown chat GPT where it helps guide the agent to the right document to help service the customer. And then naturally, there are other tools that offer next best action or guided support. And those are things we are also looking into. Lastly, performance metrics are very important for our agents. I have heard mixed reviews on some companies not providing or not wanting to provide. all the metrics to their agents. For us, it is important. With Maestro QA, it gives us a full view into the agent, whether it be one-on-one coachings, quality feedback. We pull in our customer satisfaction feedback, and the agent can log into their dashboard and see everything they want to know about themselves. And what's kind of cool is it actually drives some competition. We talk a little bit about the high fives in the what's happening in our org town hall. The performance metrics gives the agents a chance to challenge their peers because they were so close to getting that high five. What can they do differently the next month to help drive that next step with the customer? Now, I've talked a lot about closed loop and different segments within the journey and empowering the agent. But with us at Insulet, one of the most important things is looking at the customer journey. VOC, while it is a massive program, VOC is actually a small segment in the customer journey, and it feeds insights into the customer journey. So throughout our journey, we really think about, consider and choose when the customer comes to our website, is there enough information available to them that helps them choose our product? We know this moment in time, they're really uncertain whether the products or services will meet expectations, right? When they have the product in hand and they're ready to start on products, I talked a little bit about the onboarding journey that we have. This is a critical point which could make or break the relationship because have we shared enough information to make them feel comfortable on getting on the product or getting ready to be trained by going through the onboarding journey? At that point, they're really uncertain how to begin or really what to expect next. So once they've onboarded, it's really important for us to make an early impression with our customers to make sure that they are connected to our field team and they know what to expect in training. Because at that point, customers are the experience is unfamiliar to them, right? They don't know what to do next. Once they're trained, it's very important that the customer know how to thrive on product. What do I do if there's a product issue? Who do I call? Now, VOC helps drive moments in time throughout the journey and helps measure moments in time throughout the journey to bring awareness to the um, different teams within Insulet to help change what the customer journey looks like. So VOC helps provide clear information in when a customer comes to our website. We basically say, this is what the customer is looking for. When the customer is ready to be onboarded, VOC has brought awareness into needing clear step-by-step guidance and a welcoming communication so they know what to expect. The insights has really helped drive the training world in importance of an intuitive design, tutorials, and accessible support with our field team. And then our insights has really given us an opportunity to understand how do we turn that negative moment into a loyalty building experience for our customers by understanding their voice and by coaching our agents, providing FAQs on the website, really helping the customers thrive on products. So, what I want to leave everyone with is really the future of listening. And if I could take everything that I just went through and break it down into four things here, it's really honing in on predictive analysis by using data that can help inform insights on future decisions on how to route your calls, on how to train your agents, on how to coach your agents, on what the customer is expecting next for a future feature or service enhancement. Signal detection is very important. So we work with our UXR team to identify meaningful patterns and trends to understand customer feedback and what do we do with that feedback. I talked about customer journey. It's really important to understand the customer journey and where the listening mentions or listening engagement points with the customer are critical. It allows you to interpret signals more accurately. And then, of course, it's activation. If insights are important, but if you don't know what to do with them, your customer journey will not improve. So by developing a closed loop program or an insights activation program, you're essentially taking those actions and developing strategies that drive meaningful business outcomes for the customer. And most importantly, everything that we just talked to surrounds the customer and the journey that they take with the organization. Questions?
Thanks, Faith. I'm going to be the communicator of questions if people have them. I know I have one, which is just, you mentioned it sounded like you're just moving into the digital realm. So sort of the whole issue, we've talked today a lot about AI and implementation of AI, and I think the term Tina used was navigating, which is appropriate. Um, and I've had conversations with others where powerful tools that aren't designed properly in the workflow are just, you know, poorly designed workflow. So I'm just curious about that whole issue of the multi-channel dance, and what thoughts you have about that as you maybe get more involved in that now.
Yeah, so I guess there's a if I'm understanding your question, there's really a two-pronged approach here, right? When we're thinking about a contact center, it's making sure that you're measuring the moment in time the customer is engaging with the agent. I guess you could use this in the digital realm too. And when I said the digital realm, I'll give an example of what that means. So in our onboarding journey, right, we have customers that we email a survey to. Now, when you email a survey to a customer, they're going to take it at a time that they see the email or see the invite, and there could be outside factors that influence their feedback provided to us. So when I talk about the digital engagement, it's moving that email survey into an intercept survey within the onboarding portal, asking for their feedback in the moment in time. So as we start to look at designing these powerful tools and trying to wrap our head around it, we as an organization, while we may know a lot, we do partner with external partners that have experience in the space to say, how do we design this the best possible way? And we have a user experience team that helps us also think about the customer journey, what the customers want. And we use our UXR team or user research team, validate that before we implement anything. So it's kind of we have an idea, and then we engage the experts to make sure that our idea actually makes sense to the customer and that we'll get some valuable feedback from them. So that's kind of how we have approached developing tools, technology, and products.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question? Yeah.
I really commend you on your passion for your company's products and your customers. The change you're speaking of is really almost cultural in nature. How did you get your leadership team to sort of make that change and promote it internally to make it real? Did you
That's
get
a
all that?
I did. Thank you. That's a great question. Um, there's two things. It has taken some time to get us to where we are today. And we actually have an amazing leader in place that came from, his name is Curtis Kopf, who is 100% about voice of the customer, voice of the customer. Now, the way that I work is and I'm sure some of you have heard this, I'm a broken record. So I've always talked about we have innovative products. We need a support team that matches this chain, that matches the product. And it was something that I constantly said over and over and over in meetings. Now, studies show that if you say something enough or hear something enough, it's going to be ingrained in your brain. And I noticed that as I continued to say that, other people's were picking that up in the organization and it became part of their day to day. But I am only one person. It really starts with leadership and having the right leadership in place that are open to these changes and that have a customer centric mindset. I can tell you 7.5 years ago when I started, it wasn't that way. And it took time to get to this space. But having that leadership support, we are 100% customer focused in every facet now because of our leadership and how important it is that how important customers are to them.
That's great. So just to add on to that, this is John, is because that was one of the questions I had as well. So getting IT and other groups on board, are you just from a governance point of view, are you kind of creating a voice of the customer committee or something where you're trying to align everybody in that regard?
You nailed it, right?
Yeah.
So a few things that we did earlier this year is we actually interviewed our cross-functional teams to understand what insights are they missing and what is it that they wanted from customer insights. And a lot came out of those interviews. And from those interviews, we developed kind of our VOC roadmap and presented it back to the leadership team and said, the people that work in this organization are interested in doing XYZ because they will learn this, which will help foster development and change and prioritization. And we got that buy in at the leadership level. And now it's been a lot easier to implement things because we're using the feedback that they provided to drive that change. What we are doing is, I talked a little bit about Journey Map. We have a customer journey team. Now, VOC is a very small portion of the customer journey. Now, what we do is we feed that information into a journey management steer code team that really looks at the holistic view of the customer. So not only is the feedback fed through that way, there's a separate governance, but more on a survey design, implementation, standards approach, and how we use the insights, but also which would be inner loop focus, right? And then the customer journey team would be outer loop focus and driving the insights through the organization in that facet. So it's almost like a two-pronged approach from a governance standpoint.
And then any other questions? I'm just going to ask, you mentioned about the town halls and, so you've got BPO staff as well as some, I'm assuming some internal teams as well. Do you have a mix of both or is it purely
We do.
BPO? You do.
No,
Okay.
we do. We have a
Yeah.
mix
Yeah.
of both. Yep.
And so I guess the question I have is town halls, it's wonderful to be able to do that, oftentimes hard, right? For obvious reasons in terms of scheduling, whatever. What other mediums or ways are you using to try and get everybody into the, I guess, more the customer journey mindset, let alone the voice of the customer?
That's a great question. So a few different things. So while we have town halls, when we have QBRs with our BPO partners, it's the leadership team that actually holds a focus group for those agents. And we do our best to try to manage the volume that's coming in at that time, but we also want to make sure that the agents feel like they are connected to the organization. And our leadership team takes questions directly from those agents in a on-site focus group town hall type approach. I'm trying to think because I know there's new programs that are coming out in the customer facing team space. They recently released a landing page where you can go and look at trainings or what's happening now. And they really start to bring in stories and engagements where all of our BPO partners and all of our internal agents can go to a one-stop shop and see what's happening in the organization today, where they don't have to wait for a monthly town hall. They don't have to wait for a QBR. It's all accessible to them today. Now, aside from that, we are very big on communication, and we've been told that we kind of get involved in our BPOs more than the other clients they have do. So we use Microsoft Teams a lot to communicate internally. And we have specific chat rooms that are connected to our leaders at our BPO partners, to our QA team at our BPO partners, to our training team at our BPO partners. So we try to make them feel part of the company by engaging with them. Additionally, what we do is if there's something that's brand new that's coming out, let's say a new training program, we will ask them to run through it with us and validate, right? Same thing with quality. We ask for their input. Say when we release a process, we ask for the tier one agent's input at the BPO partners. They take first line calls, right? They should be involved in that engagement. So we try to get engaged in the different elements of with our BPO partners internally and externally.
Sounds good. I think we're all set. That was fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. Glad you were able to do it virtually. And I think we're good. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you guys. I appreciate your time today.